Hi there, my name is Matt Miranda. I'm the Guadalupe County 4-H agent with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. And today we're going to continue our talk of water and the water cycle with a little talk about an aquifer. Now, what is an aquifer, you might ask? Simply put, an aquifer is a water-bearing area in our soil or under our soil. Water seeps down through bedrock and collects in different places around the world. Here in Texas, we actually have 7 major aquifers in the state of Texas. And 2 of the biggest ones in our general area, that is South Central Texas, is the Edwards Aquifer and then the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer. But there are many other aquifers that you can look up. There may be one where you live as well. One of the biggest questions we get is, how exactly does water get into the aquifer? And that's a really good question, because to think about it, water would have to go through a lot of layers of things to be able to go down and collect in these big underground caves that we call aquifers. Well, it starts with the water cycle. As water falls down as rain over the landscape, that water pools up and collects in different places. In certain areas called recharge zones, that water soaks down into the ground and filters through different layers of rock, soil, and other things under the ground. And eventually, the water gets cleaned through that process and it collects in these areas underground. So I have here a little model to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So as you can see, we have our clouds up here. Clouds form through the process of condensation. All those little droplets of water start to stick together and form clouds up in the sky where it's really, really cold. And eventually those clouds, they just can't hold all that water for much longer, so it falls down as rain. And so you see our landscape here, we've got hills, so this is going to be a lot like our hill country. We've got some soil here, and we've got our lake. So when we have a big rain event, our rain falls down over the landscape, okay? And once it collects in lakes and rivers and on ground, eventually when it stops raining, that water filters down into the ground and fills up these spots in the bedrock. These aquifers are a really good thing too. That allows for us as a civilization to live in places like Texas, where it doesn't rain as much as in other parts of the world. We're never going to see, or usually won't see, the same amount of rain that a rainforest or someplace like Florida might see. They get a lot more rain than we do. In order for us to sustain our towns and our cities and our counties and things like that, we have to have good sources of drinking water. All of our rivers that come through, especially here in Guadalupe County, originally rise up in the Texas Hill Country from the Edwards Aquifer. A lot of our drinking water here in Guadalupe County either comes from the Guadalupe River or from the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer, which is located in the south central part of that county. If you live in different parts of Texas, you're going to have your own aquifer very close or near to you. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a few minutes to create an edible aquifer. Now, this aquifer is not going to be made of rock and soil like our aquifer over here, but we are going to make it out of some different ingredients. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to pause this video and get these ingredients out that you're going to need. You're going to need Sprite or some kind of lemon lime beverage. You're going to need ice cream, preferably vanilla ice cream, but you can switch to chocolate if you would like. You're going to need a small clear cup, at least 8 ounces in size. You're going to need some ice cubes. You're also going to need some chocolate syrup and some green sprinkles. So be sure to pause this video, get all those supplies together, and then we'll get started making our edible aquifer. Alrighty, we are ready to make our edible aquifer. And so just a reminder of the things that you're going to need. You're going to need a lemon lime soda of some kind, some ice cream, some chocolate syrup, some green sprinkles. You'll need a small plastic or glass clear cup, and you'll need a cup of ice cubes. So let's start building our edible aquifer. First thing we start out with is our clear glass. What do you think that clear glass represents? If we're thinking about an entire aquifer system, what does the clear glass represent? If you guessed the aquifer itself, that underground cave, you would be right. That aquifer, this cup represents that aquifer. And so it's an area underneath the soil and all that that's going to hold all of our water together. Our next thing that we need to do is add some ice. So what do you think that that ice represents? If you look at an actual aquifer, that cave is made up by different kinds of rock. One of the most specific types of rock that is used, especially in the Edwards Aquifer, is called limestone. Limestone is a semi-porous rock that allows the water to filter down through the rock itself. Not only does it clean the water, but it also allows that water to collect in the more solid rock below. So we're going to add some of our limestone to our glass. The next thing that we need to do is add our ice cream. So what do you think that that ice cream represents? If you were wondering if it represented the soil, you would be right. So we have our aquifer, we have our rock, our limestone, and then we have our soil as our next ingredient in our aquifer. Okay? Pretty easy so far. Okay, what sits on top of the soil? That could be our things like plants, that could be animals, that could be all kinds of things. And that's represented in our edible aquifer by our sprinkles. So we're going to put a lot of sprinkles on top. And you can see it covers our soil pretty nicely. The next thing we need to do, how are we going to fill up our aquifer? Well, that's easy. We need to make it rain. So we'll use our lemon lime soda to make it rain and pour it over the top. And we've got our aquifer. Okay, so we have our soil, we have our plants on top of it, we have our bedrock, and we have our aquifer itself. We have all of that. What do you think the chocolate syrup represents? There's a lot of different things it could represent, but in this case, we're going to say that it represents pollution, different contaminants that can get into our water supply. Just a little bit on top, and this could be oil or different things like that. It might just sit on top of the ground. When you add a little more rain, it pushes those contaminants underwater, underground. The aquifer can filter out, that limestone can filter out a lot of different things, but things that it can't filter out are substances like oil, pesticides, chemicals, things like that. So we need to be really careful when we are changing the oil in our car or cleaning up or doing different things around the house, that we need to try to keep contamination to a minimum. That way we don't end up with this oil or these chemicals in our water supply. Now that is our edible aquifer. Just one more thing that we have to do. One big question that we get asked is, how do we get water out of the aquifer? And that's a good question. For us, a lot of people will dig wells and then we'll pump that water out. All the water that comes from your sinks or come through pipes first starts out either in a river or an aquifer. So we have to use a well to dig down into the soil, and then we have water to drink. It's not bad. I hope that you're able to make this edible aquifer at home, and I hope that you've learned a little bit today about where our water comes from and what an aquifer is. If you have any questions, please contact us at the Guadalupe County Extension Office, and we'll be sure to get to those questions as soon as possible. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Not bad.